Welcome to Advent of Tessellations 2023. I'm Madonna Yoder, and I hope you will join hundreds of origami folders around the world in folding this daily challenge to increase your origami tessellation folding skills, so the twists and repeating patterns folded all from a single sheet of paper. On the 21st day of Advent of Tess, we're folding this pattern that I call knotted web, and it's the same on both sides. We have that same start that we had in days 4 and 5, but now we're putting hexagons around it. And it's going to turn the hexagon into a circle, which I find quite fascinating. So let's get started with those triangles in the center. What I'm going to do is put a dot right in the center so you can see which side I'm on. And then for those triangles, I'm going to have a right-handed triangle on the front side, left-handed on the back. So I'm going to have a mountain coming up one space away from my center, and it's going to extend so that the three-way intersection is kind of these two diagonal spaces away from the center. And I'm going to have a valley one space away from the center. So this is that condition that we saw in days 4 and 5, where we're alternating mountain, valley, mountain, valley, mountain, valley around our central hexagon, our one grid spacing per edge central hexagon. And to fold this, so by the way, if I was folding this without drawing on it, I would be finding my mountain one spacing away from the center, one spacing away from the corner. And then in this direction, I would be finding my valley one spacing away from the corner, mountain one spacing further. And that will dictate my third direction, which happens to also be hitting with the mountain one space from the corner. And I can squash that twist. Then I'll flip over to the back side, and I want to be aware as I'm doing that, like which two pleats are around the center and which one is going out to the corner. So I'm flipping, and I have those two pleats that are around the center. I'm going to take one of them, and we're going to do the densest possible spacing. So my valley is going to come right to that closed hole. My mountain will be one space further away. And I can set up the third direction of pleats coming to that intersection of the mountains and squash. And then come to the second of those two pleats around the center. And likewise, do the same thing with my valley coming exactly to that closed hole. Mountain one spacing further away. And that's going to determine my target grid intersection, where I will split and have 3 mountains coming to that intersection, and set up and squash my closed triangle twist. Then flip over to the opposite side, where I have 2 pleats that are forming a stair step situation. I'm going to start at the top of the stairs. And the way I'm going to do it is setting up both twists with a triangle wrap in between. Now that we've gone through 20 days of Advent of Tess, we've seen a lot of triangle wraps. And the cue is the same as we just saw on those 2 triangles on the back. The valley is going to come to that closed triangle hole. and then it will run a spacing past this mountain coming from the first triangle intersection. And I'll wrap underneath, and I'll have my second triangle intersection above, or sorry, below. And squash both triangles in turn. And if you want, I probably did it slower on days 4 and 5. And I probably also showed alternatives that don't involve setting these both up at once. So if you want to go back and check those out, that would probably be a good idea if you're having trouble. And then we're going to flip over and see the closed triangle from the wrap on that side. Now I'm going to flip back to my side with the dot, the front side with the right-handed triangle twists, just in case you're following along from the crease pattern in the pattern download, so that you can see exactly what's going on the crease pattern as well as in the video. So the cue here is tube pleat spacing, but it's not going to look like a tube. And really it's this valley is 2 spaces away from the valley under this triangle. So I'm going to put a hexagon twist in this area. It's going to be an open hexagon, and it's going to be on the pleat from the triangle on the opposite side. So from the hole, I'm going to have my new hexagon out here. And the valley is going to need a mountain next to it. And we can start drawing our puffy star shape that we're going to have. And here I'm going to just leave it as a pleat overlap up above. And down below, I've noticed that I'm opening up this pleat so I can set up my new pleat. Notice that it's still 2 spacings from mountain to mountain. Just like we had 2 spacings from valley to valley here, we have 2 spaces from mountain to mountain here. That's what's going to allow this to be an isoarea tessellation. And I'm going to let that be a pleat overlap. And then I'll go around and continue setting up my open hexagon twist. Yes, I do have a corner of the hexagon that is right on the edge of the paper. That's okay. I'm going to start squashing in these areas where I have a bit more control, then work my way to that point that's right at the corner, making sure that this little flap is tucked under here, kind of respecting and following this pleat. And then with a little air folding, I can get everything in place and squashed. Next up, I need to flip to the opposite side of the paper, and I have a choice of which hexagon to do next. Now, one of these is already floating up and saying, pick me, I'm the friendly overlap. And the other one is locked down, basically saying, no, you don't want to go here. So we're going to go with the friendly one. And one thing that will help with these hexagons, anytime we have a friendly overlap, the central hexagon of the open hexagon twist is going to have its corner right in the overlap. So I can go ahead and sketch on here more of that puffy star. And as I open it up, I'm going to set up my new creases or I should say my new pleats rather, all the way around that hexagon. And notice the order that I worked in. First, I did the longest pleat, and it's the one that has the pleat overlap. Then I did the next longest and the next longest. So when you are working with setting up these open hexagons, there's going to be some areas of the paper that are more stable, easier to work with, and some areas that are less stable, a little harder to work with. And so you want to get the more stable ones set up first so that those unstable ones aren't disturbed by moving the paper around later. Another thing to notice in here is that according to the repeats of the pattern, I would have another triangle twist right here. So its corner would be at the corner of the open hexagon hole. But for today's purposes, to get that smooth circular outline, I'm just leaving that pleat tucked under the next hexagon. But if you were folding on a bigger grid, folding more repeats, you definitely want to take care of these two triangles that are between these hexagons before moving on. So continuing, I'm going to go towards that overlap that will be friendly on the opposite side and set up my new open hexagon twist at that overlap. And squash. And by the way, it is possible to fold everything that I'm showing you here. Well, strictly speaking, not everything, but it's possible to fold the hexagons a spacing closer to the triangles. And that gets you a pattern that I call knotted web tight, as opposed to knotted web that we're folding right now. And that puts the edge of the hexagon in line with the edge of the triangle. So right next to each other. And you get some really interesting backlighting there too. But for today, we're doing the more spacing option because we're starting with this, what everyone calls a harder start. And we're going to use this to feed into tomorrow, where we're going to have the same start, but have trapezoids, which are half hexagons instead of whole hexagons. But for right now, we'll continue flipping the paper over and adding a new hexagon to that friendly overlap. Now with this one, I'm getting a lot more layers as I fold through. And really, I only care that like this much of it is stable. I don't have to really crunch the rest because I'll be able to squash my twist with just a little bit of flat area around it. And we're getting into this crunchy stuff with 2 hexagons to go. And flipping over, I'm going to open the pleat, the friendly pleat overlap. And here, my new pleat is running through my first hexagon. And that's fine because an open hexagon is one of the several twists that the grid lines line up inside and outside the twist. So I can just fold right through there. and get these, or this hexagon firmly in place. And now one of the things I can do while I'm here is open up and reorder this area. So it had been a pleat from the triangle and then a pleat from the hexagon. If we reorder that, if we take this valley and pop it down, and we don't have to fully close it up again. We just want to get that ordering while we're here. And then we can flip over and see that that has started setting up our puffy star, which we can continue setting up. And this one, since it is the last one, we might want to layer that longer flap under the short flap from the neighboring hexagon. And the rest of them kind of layered like that naturally because of the order we folded them in, and that'll help keep things locked in place. And as always with squashing close to the edge, we want to be a little extra careful with that corner that's right on the edge. And there you have it, knotted web. So happy folding, everybody, and I'll see you tomorrow where we're turning these hexagons into trapezoids.